Hello, 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 and welcome to this video. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about how I how I saw that the spiritual abuse, the church trauma that I was going through, how I saw that it was people rather than God, how I basically saw through the crap in a way. And how I was able to maintain or keep my faith in God. I didn't walk away from God. And I'm going to share this is also a little bit more of my story. And if you've seen my other videos, you've watched, there's a few that I have shared bits and pieces of my story. It would take probably it would be books and it'll be multiple videos, but many people ask for my story. And I truly believe that unless you have been through spiritual abuse, church trauma, religious trauma, you really aren't in a complete position to help somebody because it is very complex. And there are so many different symptoms, and everybody's body recognizes trauma in different ways. There isn't any cookie cutter thing going on here. Your body determines what is traumatic for you, and that could be completely different than somebody else's. So that's what I mean by cookie cutter. And but there are, many similarities that we all share as far as symptoms and struggles and triggers and things like that that we deal with and that we can heal from. But it is a process. So the story I'm going to share with you today, I believe, as I was praying, I'm like, well, how did I? Because so many people that have been wounded in the church have not only left the church organization, but they've walked away from God. And although I spent time being mad at God, I think, that's very normal. That is very normal because, anger is a natural part of grief. And when you've been through abuse or anything traumatic, it just kicks in. The grief just kicks in from that. When you lose a loved one, when a loved one dies, that's a traumatic thing that happens. And you go into the grieving process. And anger is just a natural part of that. There are several aspects of it, and I talk about that actually September, and this month, this is October, and that's what I'm teaching on and coaching on in our spiritual healing circle is grief and how to recognize and overcome that. But so being angry at God it's actually just a natural response. So many people don't know that. They think that there's something wrong, that they're doing, there's somehow they're in sin, or that it's completely wrong to be angry with God. And I'm wondering if that's kind of what pushes them away from God. There's also a lot of shame and things that are associated, and that, that happens when you're abused, you're shamed. There's a lot of shame that comes through trauma and abuse. So anyway, I seem to get off on some rabbit holes these days. So back on track. The story I'm going to share with you as I was praying about how did I maintain and keep faith in God through this, because I've been in several abusive churches or entities, whatever you want to call that, organizations. And I was a smoker, and I was a smoker for, a number of years. And I'll tell you, this is just me being honest. I loved smoking. And I've been a natural health practitioner and in the natural health industry for many, 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 many years. And I know how bad it is for you. And if it wasn't bad for you, I would probably still smoke. Just being honest. you know, I don't smoke now, but I did for years. And I, let's see, I was in a Bible study, and we had switched from a certain church to a more charismatic type church. And the reason we did was because the other church, we were told, they didn't believe in the gifts. And I was married at the time. That didn't matter to me because I'm like, well, are they going to kick us out? I didn't understand like why you shouldn't go to a church because they don't believe in the gifts or whatever. I thought, well, I believe God can do anything. He's the God of the universe. He can do anything. I just have always believed that ever since I was a little girl. Nobody ever told me that. That was just my personal belief. And so when I was told that we needed to leave that church and go to this other one because of that, I was like, well, okay, let's just go. And I was smoking at the time. And it wasn't that I wanted to smoke because I felt like I was in sin. Because, in church, that people, feel like I had to hide it. I had shame about it because I was shamed in a way. And, learning about sin and this and that. And we switched to this church, and then it was a much smaller church. And so I felt a little more highlighted, and kids were young. And so one of the rules was, if your kids were in Sunday school, you took turns teaching in their class, which I believe that, yes, if you have children, it's something you should be doing. And so then, I was also talked to, well, smoking is kind of a sin and shouldn't really be doing that. And so then that just made me feel even worse. And then my spouse was, kind of on that way. And so I felt all this pressure to quit. And I was also doing an inductive Bible study at a different church. And so it was a huge group of women from various churches. And so, we did like prayer time. And so I was very intimidated by them because most of these women had been Christians for a number of years. And here I was with this, I was a smoker. And I felt like I was hiding that. And so I did. I had a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, and I tried to quit. And I would become like a maniac, you know? And so this new church that we were in, I was told that, maybe I had a demon and I needed to be delivered from smoking. Because, I did. I got pretty nasty when I would try and quit. And I was just addicted to it. There's a lot of chemicals in cigarettes, and especially for women, it messes up your hormones. And when you're addicted to something, it's hard when your body's going through withdrawals. And at that point, I didn't have as much of an understanding of the natural health detoxification aspect that I do now. So scientifically speaking, physiologically, your body is addicted because of the chemicals that were in cigarettes. And so you have to, a whole bunch of stuff goes on with your body chemistry and withdrawals and all of that. And so it's perfectly normal to become, a little crazy when you try and quit smoking. Just like when people that try and quit drugs or alcohol when they're addicted to it. There's a detoxification process that you go through. So anyway, I was told I need some deliverance. and to come to church a little early and demons and all that. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So that scared the daylights out of me, right? I didn't sleep that night. I didn't know what was, I mean, were they going to perform an exorcism on me, take me in the back room? I didn't know what the heck was going on. So I wasn't all that happy with my spouse for that. And it turned like the next morning, I was terrified. I was literally terrified to go to church and to be exposed. And I had all these thoughts in my head about what could go on. And I was embarrassed and I was humiliated. And all of this was going on. And we didn't get to church early and nothing happened at that point. And it turns out it wasn't like the pastor saying that. It was just some wacky guy that was in leadership at the time saying this nonsense. But anyway, so then in my Bible study, I started putting down in there as my prayer request that God would help me quit smoking. And I was terrified of God. I thought I had this demon. That's what they had told me. And so I was embarrassed and I felt shameful because I partied like it was 1999 in high school and it wasn't even 1999 yet. And I did some drugs and that'll be another video, another story. And so my prayer request that I would write down was that God would help me to quit smoking. And I remember one day this woman came up and she said, I have your answers. And I got so excited. And she gave me this scripture and she said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And here I had been praying. I had been, reading that scripture, I'd been reading the Bible, I'd been studying. And this woman gets me all excited and she gives me the scripture. And I thought, lady, if that's scripture, she's like, just say it over and over and over. And I thought, if that worked, like, seriously, do you think I would still be smoking and in this position? And so I just had a lot of emotion. I felt like I was wrong. Like something was wrong with me that it didn't work for me. Here is this woman who had been a Christian for a long time, and I had only been a Christian for a short amount of time. And, I was praying for people. People had asked me to pray for them, and their prayers were getting answered. But for some reason, I felt like God just didn't, maybe he didn't love me enough, or maybe there was something wrong with me. That I couldn't stop. Like maybe it was this demon thing. And so I was just feeling horrible about myself, terrible about myself. And I was struggling in so many different ways. And I continued to smoke. I continued to try and quit. And it was just failure after failure. And I would pray and nothing would happen that I thought anyway. And one day I found Joyce Meyer and she was telling a story about how she used to have Bible study and in her cutoff shorts and chain smoking. And I thought that just spoke to me. And she was going on and on about her story. And then, she said, and at one point she thought, God, I should probably not do this anymore. And at this point, she hadn't smoked in a long time. And so I thought, God, if you helped her, then, you can help me. And I just felt like something had just been lifted off of me. And here at the church, there's all these people now from, women from multiple churches that knew, and then this church I was going to, and, both were growing. And so people knew, like more and more people knew, and they were just saying like wacky things, demons and strongholds. And, you just need to pray. You're in, sin. It's the sin that's keeping you, God's distant from you because of the sin. I mean, I could go on and on and on. That's why you're struggling in other areas. And, you know, all of that. And so I felt horrible about myself. And then this went on for quite a while. And every time I would think about, I would feel just really down on myself, or I would think, why maybe God doesn't love me, or, maybe there's something wrong, like this demon thing, maybe they're right. And that was still terrifying me because I didn't have any understanding of what that was. I thought maybe this thing was living inside of me, and, it was making me evil. I guess that's what I was thinking, is that I was evil because of this. Um, and so really all I had was my faith in God. For some reason, like, God, if there's this evil thing is living in me, then, you have to be stronger than that. And so when I would pray, I'd have peace. And when I would think about it, and when it would really start eating me up, I would go back to what Joyce Meyer had said. And that might sound kind of cheesy, I don't know. But to me, it was just one of those little things. And I just had this vision of her in these, like, cut off Daisy Dukes, sitting around puffing, chain smoking with a bunch of ladies with, you know, polish and big hairdos and stuff, having Bible study. And I know, like, that would just like lift something. And I would just feel like, okay, well, God, you did it for her. So what about me? And years went by, years went by, years went by. And then finally one day I just had had enough, and I had tried quit, and it just didn't work. And so one day I thought, what, God, here's the thing. If this is wrong in your eyes, if I have this weird, wacky demon thing that's terrifying me, if that's really what's going on, that's a spiritual thing. I'm hearing this in church. If what all of these church people are saying is true, and I'm also hearing that you love me, and I'm also hearing that you are in control, and that this is wrong in your eyes. So if I'm sinning, if I'm that horrible because I smoke, and you're that mad at me, I can't do this on my own. I just can't. So I'm just going to give this to you and say, this is your baby. And if you want me to quit smoking, then you're going to have to help me here. You're going to have to like make it happen, because, it's not working for me. And so if all the stuff that these people are saying is true, this is all on you. Right. And I was not happy when I said it. I was angry. I was angry at God. I was angry at these people. I felt, I didn't like myself by this time. And after I said that, I just felt like God said, okay, when I'm ready, then we'll work on that, and we'll work on it together. And until then, just be you. I love you, and there's nothing wrong with you. And this whole thing of peace just came over me. And I thought, you know what? Like, my next thought was, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just addicted to cigarettes. And when it's time, I'll quit. And it's not going to be this treacherous, horrible thing. It's just going to happen. And so about a year later or so, it did. I just quit. I just felt like it was time, and it was not a big production. It wasn't anything like weird. I just knew that it was time, and I quit. So what does that have to do with how I maintained, or how I kept faith in God through all of this spiritual traumatic abuse? How do the two tie in together? Well, that was pretty traumatic, and that was pretty abusive. And it also showed me that the difference between how God was really responding to me and what he really thought of me versus what people were saying he was like. So it was on two completely different levels. And later, when I was going through some other spiritual abuse and that whole indoctrination and feeling like there was something wrong with me, that I was the problem, when I did decide to get out, that story of me quitting smoking and all of that process and how God actually handled the situation, not only for me, but with me, because we're together. Like he is in me, right? Christ in me. And so we're partners. There wasn't anything like, I mean, it was like magical to me, but it was, we both were, it's like, okay, it's time. God doesn't control us or make us do things. God, that's not how or who God is. He asks for our permission. And when we give it, then we can co-partner, we can work together. I couldn't have done it without him. Um, and I certainly couldn't do it with all of these like people that were saying all of this ridiculous nonsense to me, and just creating this, I don't even know, like putting all the shame and condemnation and judgment and feeding me all these like lies and stuff. Anyway, so when I came, when I came to that place, it's like I remembered that story. And I remember, I will never ever forget that day in that clip of Joyce Meyer that I saw. And that was like, I don't know, like 22 years ago or so when I saw that clip. And I will never forget how, like, I can still see that vision that I had of a bunch of ladies and her sitting around in Daisy Dukes smoking a cigarette and, all of that. And it probably looked nothing like what I envisioned it. But I won't ever forget that. And that is just something that has stuck with me. And it's helped me to see through people's crap and their abuse and their toxicity and maintain and keep my faith in God and knowing that what those people are saying is not God. That's their stuff. They may be saying that in the name of God and using scripture, but they're out of line. It's not coming from God. That's just coming from some weird thing within them, a weird belief system within them. So that's part of what has helped me, is that I know that people are just people. I'm not perfect either. I'm sure that I have not been accurate in some of the things throughout the years that I have said, when it comes to God or beliefs, especially in that time, because for one, I didn't even think God liked me. I didn't like myself. I thought I was in, you know, sin and demonized. I thought I was possessed because that's what they said. So that is how I have kept faith and maintained, because I had experienced that part of God, that love of God for myself. And that had nothing to do, there wasn't a person involved in that other than me catching that clip of Joyce Meyer. The rest of it was all just between God and I. And I'm very grateful for that. So that has kept me having faith in God and maintaining that faith and building on that relationship that I have with God. Now, that doesn't mean that I haven't been angry or, I've been unhappy, what I'm saying, through over the years when things have happened. But I think that having that experience, even though what I went through with the people, and I wouldn't want anybody to have to go through what I did because they were smoking, or they struggled with something that was, called a sin. Um, I wouldn't want anybody to go through that. The same time, if I had not have gone through that, would I have had that intimate experience with God? Maybe not. So anyway, I hope that helps some of you, at least one of you, hopefully more. But my hope and my prayer for you is that you would be able to see the difference between what is really God and what is really people. That you would be able to see that for yourself and have that experience, that intimate personal relationship for yourself aside from people, so that that would help you to be able to um, see the junk that can come through people, and that would help you to guard your heart, to protect your heart, because your heart is good. It's really good. And sometimes it can get those black marks in our heart because of people. And that's not good. So I love you all, and I will see you next time.